It all starts with a dream. For me, my dream was always to own my own home, to create something of beauty, a shelter I felt warmth from and a connection with. I wanted to live with nature, and part of that was to grow a garden, eat from its bounty, take in the sun as energy for power, catch rainwater, and be aware of my resource use. Part of choosing to live this way was also to be debt-free. I built this home as the money came in. I worked and I built on repeat for some time. And slowly, from living without running water or electricity for 2 years, to being able to have the basics for a functional home, I was able to enjoy parts of living tiny, nestled into the hill by a big fig tree. The tiny house gave me spaciousness in my life to be able to learn to weave on a loom and spin on a spinning wheel, to work with my hands and create meaningful artworks using natural fibres and hand-woven textiles. However, living this way off-grid wasn't always easy. It came with varied challenges and struggles each year, until the final few years were so wet, after months of rain, that living in the paddock without a driveway, amongst the mud and leaking windows, I just couldn't do it any longer. I had stopped thriving. Each weekend, I started to go out exploring, raincoat on or not, to a new location in search of dry land. My heart took me on a road trip one winter's evening, all the way up the Great Dividing Range to Granite Country, to a different climate, to a warm and spacious cabin. It was freezing. In the morning, when I woke, everything was covered in ice. I couldn't even remember ever experiencing a frost like this. Everything was quiet, still and crisp. It was glorious. Even though the temperatures were far lower than I was used to, I was prepared with my woolens and had plenty of firewood to keep the fire going day and night through my stay. Taking time out of my life, out of my story, away from overwhelm, I was able to reflect. Not only could I feel something new, sense and see perhaps another way of living as a possibility, I was also able to go home refreshed, restored, and with hope for my future. I had felt so stuck for so long in a way of living that didn't feel 100% authentic. It had been eating away at my joy, my happiness. I was worn down and almost could not see the light to find my way out. Then, when springtime came, I decided to go back again, up to the highlands, but to a new area. The landscape truly spoke to me and led me to a beautiful garden where the gates were open, and I met some lovely people. As it was warm, dry and sunny, I continued my adventures and climbed some giant granite rocks. When I got to the top, the views were absolutely spectacular, breathtaking. I laid down and felt the warmth of the rock rise up through my skin into my back and fill me with life. As the sun set on another day, I knew this is where I had to be. Making my way back home to the tiny house, down from the range, the message was clear. I knew what had to be done. It was time to leave the tiny house. Sometimes messages come to us when we least expect them. In the past, I have rushed around so much to get things done, and out of a space of flight and adrenaline. This message fell out of my shelves when I was packing, and is absolutely perfect for the process that I was about to embark on. Live with grace. Packing isn't just about putting things in boxes and moving it from one place to another. If able, there is this opportunity to cleanse and clean out what no longer lives and take only what brings joy. One by one, shelves and cupboards were emptied slowly. I gave time to reflect on the years that have been. What has been accomplished, what has failed, good times and the not so great. As each box fills and is taped, ready to go, I dream into my new life, my new home, and wonder what will come. For me this time, I felt lucky to have the space where I was able to take my time to pack, to really give energy to making this a good transition. It wasn't completely without stress, but not having time limits or restrictions really helped me to be able to drop into the process fully. I'm really grateful for this at this moment in time in my life. The majority of my boxes were filled with craft tools, materials, things I use and things I just like to look at that inspire me. When I first built the tiny home, I didn't know that I was going to be so taken up with, or that I would throw myself so fully into craft. I was always creative and enjoyed it as a young person, but I didn't expect it to be most of what I spend my time doing. When people design and build their own tiny homes, they often accommodate for their hobbies or interests, and they allocate adequate space to be able to enjoy and realise their dreams in the space. When I designed and built my tiny home, I built it small, at only 6 metres long. At the time, I was working full-time, out of the house, so I was quite wrapped up in that and didn't really fully consider what my needs were in that way. As my craft grew, my accumulation of tools and materials did also. And not only did I physically outgrow the space, but as I began to get healthier and stronger after some unpleasant years, my energy no longer fit in the space. I had outgrown it. So I locked the front door and said goodbye. It was time to go, but unfortunately I didn't have an adequate vehicle to move me from one house to the other. I didn't want to let this stop me, but I could feel the grip of the past tight on me. Luckily, friends came to help me move the first load to my new studio. Okie dokie, bye-bye little house. It made me think about how our stories stick to us like glue, where we can want and wish for change so badly, but it can seem almost impossible to get out of the life we have created, or the life that has been dealt to us. It takes great energy and courage and also good people to help us move forward in our life's journey. I'm very, very grateful for the friend that came to help me that day. The glue was thinning. Once I had broken free from this initial block, new wheels came into my life. And with these, I was able to do consecutive loads in the transition to my new home. I managed to fit all of my equipment, including my loom and spinning wheel, even though heavy and awkward in shape. It was a funny moment when I realised that I thought I'd done most of the work by packing, sorting, loading up the car, driving, putting things in the house, and then realising I had to unpack it all too. It was a really big job, and over the weeks that followed, that is what I did. Part of settling into the new landscape was also unboxing and putting things away in the new home. I find that taking breaks often in between these big tasks, heading out for a walk to somewhere in nature, particularly at golden hour, helps me to feel connected and energised and ready to keep going with the task that is required. I really love these cows. They're just down the road. They're so inquisitive. Part of setting up my new home came with building furniture, the kind which I have never put together before. It wasn't so much really about learning new skills, but about patience. And of course, following instructions, making mistakes, screwing, unscrewing screws, and then driving 130 kilometres to get screws that were missing from the kit. Well, I guess that's country living. As the days continued on, I found homes for all of my special things. It was very messy for a while there. In the midst of it all, I took to my spinning wheel whenever I felt overwhelmed and like I couldn't face it. For me, fibre arts is so much more than just art. Creating something wearable or practical or beautiful. It is a process, and it helps me process life, whether it's change or excitement or any emotion really that comes with living. I'm so grateful to have access to this and have learnt the skills to be able to draw on them when I need them in the day-to-day. Whilst I was unpacking all of my boxes, there was definitely a moment of thinking, I have too many fibres, threads and yarn. But then I remembered it's not all mine, it's actually yours. Because when you come to learn with me, these are the materials that you will be using and enjoying when you're learning how to weave in my studio. It was time for another little outing to keep the spirits high. This time, I headed out just down the road on a beautiful drive and towards a national park, where there's plenty of granite and running water. It really grounds me to lay on the warm rocks or swim in the cool, fresh water. I think it's why I felt called to move to this new landscape after 18 years on and off in the previous area. I hadn't unpacked my new spinning wheel yet when I filmed this, so I took the old traditional wheel out. It's slow going, but it works and it helps me to breathe. Thank you so much for watching this video, which has been all about what has been a major life transition for me. See you in the next video. Love and blessings from Golden Hour in the High Country.